Greetings dear viewers and welcome back to the review program. This week Tashkent hosted the second GCC Central Asia Joint Ministerial Meeting on Strategic Dialogue. In this episode we are going to analyze the outcomes of the significant event. Before we proceed with the meeting, let's define the Gulf Cooperation Council. The Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf is also referred to as Cooperation Council. Its headquarters is in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The council consists of 6 member states: United Arab Emirates, State of Bahrain, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Sultanate of Oman, State of Qatar, and State of Kuwait. The list of the Organization of Cooperation Council includes Supreme Council, Ministerial Council, and Secretariat General. On May 25, 1981, the leaders of the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, and Kuwait met in Abu Dhabi for the first summit of the Gulf Cooperation Council. They reached a cooperative framework joining the 6 states of the effect coordination, integration, and interconnection among the member states in the fields in order to achieve unity. The main objectives of the Council include effect coordination, integration, and interconnection between the member states, to deepen and strengthen relations, links, and areas of cooperation, to formulate similar regulations in the economic and financial affairs, commerce, customs and communications, education, culture, social and healthcare affairs, information and tourism, legislative and administrative affairs, to stimulate scientific and technological process, establishing joint ventures and encourage cooperation by the private sector. This year, the capital of Uzbekistan, Tashkent, hosted the second foreign ministerial meeting of the Central Asia, the Gulf Cooperation Council Strategic Dialogue. The Uzbek team got the opportunity to cover this significant event. More details on that in the report of my colleague Gulbahor Abdukarimova.
The foreign ministers of Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan discussed the current state and prospects to further strengthening relations between the Council countries and the Central Asian states in the areas of politics, security, trade, and investment. The prospects of the format were confirmed by the results of the first summit of the heads of state of Central Asia and the Gulf Cooperation Council held on July 19, 2023 in Saudi city of Jeddah. The leaders of the countries approved the Joint Action Plan 2023-2027, which defines long-term directions of mutually beneficial partnership. 4 main areas of cooperation were discussed. The situation in Gaza was on the spotlight of discussion. Ministers emphasized the need for immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
There are 4, the joint action plan that was approved last year includes several areas of cooperation, but probably the most important are 4. And the first one is political and security dialogue, because we both Central Asian countries and the GCC countries are concerned about security and the developments in the international scene. And we have very similar approaches to these areas. For example, the situation in Gaza and Palestine was discussed at length in the meeting today. The situation in Afghanistan was also discussed. The situation in the Red Sea and the threat to international shipping.
As the first area of cooperation was the security, we asked what was discussed at the meeting in this regard.
One of the most important areas that we discussed today was the situation in Gaza and in Palestine. And all the ministers agreed that we need to improve the humanitarian conditions. We need an immediate and sustainable ceasefire. And also we need to convene an international conference as soon as possible for all parties to discuss the future of Gaza, the future of Palestine.
Other areas of cooperation included trade investment. The current investment in Central Asia makes up $50 billion. The next cooperation areas is the connectivity and transportation. At the meeting, parties discussed to link the regions by road to increase the trade relations. Furthermore, tourism cooperation was discussed. In recent years, Uzbekistan's resolutions with Gulf states have reached a new level. Mutually beneficial cooperation is actively developing in all areas. The exchange of high-level low-level and high-level visits has intensified. Trade turnover with GCC member states have been growing, as has the number of joint projects being implemented. The main areas involves partnering with major companies to develop solar and wind power plants and energy storage facilities.
Recently, the Cooperation Council has released its joint statement. What kind of aspects does it include? Why is it important to know what has it included, and what role did this format play for Uzbekistan this week? In order to get answers to these questions, we are going to discuss this with the political scientist Farhod Talipov. Good evening. We're really glad to have you back in our studio.
Good evening.
Let's first talk about the meeting itself that was hosted this week. What role did it play for Uzbekistan in terms of the policy making and for the future cooperation with the Gulf states?
Indeed, this is quite unique format. Gulf Cooperation Council was actually itself created long ago, but it's this council, so this group of countries' interest in Central Asia and in particular in Uzbekistan is relatively new phenomenon. And Uzbekistan, of course, can benefit from this new format. Actually, this activity within the GCC format plus Central Asia is, I would say, or coincided with Uzbekistan's active policy in Central Asia. And that's why I think it goes in unison with Uzbekistan's regional policy. What I mean by regional policy, since approximately 2017 and 2018, Uzbekistan and President of Uzbekistan, Mirziyoyev, proclaimed that Central Asia will be the priority in foreign policy of Uzbekistan. In this sense, the regional activity, comprehensive activity, including many spheres of Uzbekistan, in my opinion, now goes in unison with GCC project, let's say GCC format. Let's see how it will develop. But anyway, this format is not just about GCC plus Central Asia or, well, GCC plus Uzbekistan in particular. It is deeper and broader in its effect, in its implications. Because it is about region-to-region cooperation. GCC itself is a region. Although there are 5 states in the GCC, they articulated this time their regional approach to another region, to Central Asia. So that's why we have a unique opportunity, Uzbekistan of course, unique opportunity to capitalize on this region-to-region approach. As I said above, for Uzbekistan, the regional unity, as we say in political language, international agency of Central Asia, is the strategic goal of Uzbekistan. So that's why probably the GCC Central Asia format will contribute to Uzbekistan's active policy in the region, directed to unification, to integration of Central Asian countries.
How would you compare this format to other C5+1 formats?
Yes, indeed. As you know, recently we are observing, since recent time, we are observing very interesting phenomenon which is called C5+1. And even in the last United Nations General Assembly, President Mirziyoyev himself mentioned this phenomenon, C5+1, saying that there are already no less than 10 formats of this kind, C5+1. And it was in September last year. Since then, even we have more than 10 C5+1. And indeed, this is a symptom of our time, that these kind of formats, similar to each other by name, proliferate. We have more and more C5+1. It's really interesting why Central Asia attracts attention of global powers, big powers, mid-ranking powers. And I would say there is a similarity of GCC Central Asia with other C5+1, but at the same time, it is quite unique. I mean, GCC Central Asia format is quite unique in a sense that if other C5+1s such as C5 plus the United States, C5 plus Russia, C5 plus China and others, this one is distinguishable with the fact that it is, it looks like not one country plus C5, but as 5 plus 5, because the GCC itself consists of 5 states, Gulf, Persian Gulf, Arab states, as we call them. So it is, as I said above, kind of a region-to-region format. There is another similar format actually among other C5 plus. It is European Union plus Central Asia. So in this sense, we can compare region-to-region approach. EU has its own strategy on Central Asia. By the way, its strategy was adopted in 2019, and since then, European Union is implementing its strategy. Very ambitious, very interesting strategy. By the way, last time we discussed this topic. And GCC itself, a region, and it is relevant to compare GCC regionalism or region-to-region approach and EU region-to-region approach. For instance, European Union Central Asia approach or Central Asia strategy makes a bold emphasis on not simply region-to-region, it's common word, but on readiness of the European Union to share with Central Asian countries of its regional integration experience. And they even emphasized in the strategy this idea that Central Asia, well, itself is engaged in regional integration strategy, and Europe can contribute to this by sharing its own experience. GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council, doesn't emphasize such kind of approach to Central Asia, although itself a region. But anyway, much will depend on how GCC will regard Central Asia as a single, unified, integrated region, and itself will manifest itself as a region. Because we know there is Qatar in the GCC, there is Saudi Arabia, there is United Arab Emirates, Oman, Kuwait. They are individual countries which already have cooperation with Central Asian countries, invest in Central Asian economy, Central Asian countries' economy, things like that. Individually, they do cooperate even without GCC format. But how within the GCC they will be able to manifest themselves as a region or develop a kind of a common approach, GCC approach to Central Asia, is another question. So that's why answering your question, what is the difference or how we can compare, it is indeed interesting to observe how GCC approach to Central Asia as a region, itself being a region. And in this sense, we can compare, as I said, this group of countries to European Union. But of course, it's a bigger question if we compare this GCC format, C5 plus GCC, with other C5 plus ones, we can indeed distinguish differences. American version is one C5 plus one. As I said, European is another. Russian version of C5 plus one is absolutely different. Chinese is still another. So that's why, in a comparative perspective, GCC has its own feature, its own peculiarity. So let's see. But when you analyze GCC Central Asia meeting this time, I would judge the overall efficiency or inefficiency, I don't know, of the GCC Central Asia format based on the joint statement which was published recently.
Yeah, actually talking about the joint statement, it outlines about 30 points, right? What is your overall expression about this statement that they have released?
My impression of this meeting and the results of the meeting reflected in the joint statement is threefold, I would say. First impression is it looks ambitious. It's a big text. By Word format, it is 7 page document. Anyway, it's comprehensive, includes so many spheres like transport connectivity, energy cooperation, well, even such spheres which relatively novel and unusual for this group of countries as digitalization or artificial intelligence sphere, how they will cooperate in this sphere, I even cannot imagine. Nevertheless, it is declared. And of course, security. Security is also relatively new for this format because in terms of security, Central Asians cooperated more closely with Western countries, United States, European Union, in some aspects with the Russian Federation. But Gulf states are, let's say, relatively new actors in the sphere of security. They covered water, energy spheres as well. So my first impression is it's really very comprehensive, all-embracing, let's say. Second impression is it looks so far quite declarative because, for instance, it reminds me, this joint statement, reminds me other similar declarations or joint statements, in particular, Shanghai Cooperation Organization declarations. As you know, SCO summits every year, end with their own declarations, like Tashkent Declaration, Samarkand Declarations, or Astana Declaration, or, well, Beijing Declaration, or elsewhere. And if you read the text of those SCO declarations, they are also very comprehensive, including everything, good intentions, and very ambitious. Well, compare SCO declarations and the GCC Central Asia joint statement. Well, in most aspects, in most items, they repeat each other. It became kind of a tradition from maybe that Central Asian countries include the same ideas in many declarations, in many joint statements. How GCC will be unique in this sense and can contribute to this set of issues which are reflected in the joint statement is, for me, a big question because I don't see so far how GCC can indeed cooperate with Central Asian countries in this huge set of spheres. That's why my second impression is, so far it is quite declarative. Its style of the document, style of expressions, and how they compose the text of the joint statement, so far sounds declarative. So that's why practicality needs to be analyzed further. And third impression is not only taken from the text of the joint statement, but also from the overall event. I think it is not free from geopolitics. And a geopolitical dimension of GCC Central Asia format is implicit or explicit. We can suspect that it's not free from geopolitics. What I mean, in particular, we know that the overall ideas which are included in joint statement, such as transport connectivity, energy, and so on, are targeting the idea of connecting Central Asia to Gulf states. Yes. But between Arabic Gulf states, Arab states of the Persian Gulf and Central Asia, there is Iran. There is how can you connect Gulf states to Central Asia without participation of Iran? Because Iran itself has well-developed infrastructure system, transport system, and so on. So that's why so far in the document and in the format itself, in the composition of the format, Iran is not present. How will they achieve these ambitious goals without Iranian participation? For me, it is a vague situation because Iran is one of the biggest Gulf states. Iran itself is a Persian Gulf state, but it's not included in this format. So that's why it's quite a vague situation, as I said. But we know that historically, Iran on one side and Gulf states, Arab states of the Persian Gulf on the other side, are in a tense relationship with each other. There is tension, there is rivalry, and in some stages even antagonisms between Arab countries of Persian Gulf and Iran. Taking this case, we can say there is geopolitics anyway. For instance, we know that Iran considers Arab states of Persian Gulf as allies of the United States, that these states are under direct influence from the United States. Again, this is a geopolitical factor. Well, that's why we can also take into account this element of this format. To what extent United States, the West in general, affects Persian Gulf states, Arab states, and to what extent this geopolitical dimension really is present in the format GCC Central Asia is also an important issue to be analyzed. So that's why I say it's not free from geopolitics. This is my third impression.
What is your general impression on this ministerial meeting that was held in Tashkent?
In general, we can look at the text of the joint statement and, can come to some interesting assumptions. I will not, of course, read all the text right now, but let me take some excerptions from the joint statement, and they themselves are quite illustrative of complexity of the situation. For instance, they mention the water issue, even referring to the United Nations decade, 2018-2028 decade of action plan on sustainable water, something like this. So water issue is articulated in this document. All right, water issue, water distribution, water supply, availability of water is one of the most acute issue for Central Asians, especially in the context of exacerbation of water problematic, construction of Kashtepa Canal by Afghanistan. This project envisages that about 20-25% of the water flow of Amu Darya will be diverted to the northern provinces of Afghanistan. I'm not a water specialist, but in my conversation with water specialists, they say that not this year, not next year, maybe in 5-year perspective, in 7-year perspective, we will be facing serious consequences, ecological consequences of this Kashtepa Canal project. And if it is really an environmental problem, as we know, ecology, environmental issues do not recognize borders. Even Afghans themselves can face the same consequences from this project. That's why how GCC Central Asia format, so ambitious, can contribute to the resolution of this issue. Can they can they find a magic solution of Kashtepa Canal construction by, influencing in a way that we can find the mutually acceptable solution and avoid possible ecological consequences of this project? This is a concrete question. Declaration in the joint statement is one thing. They even articulated water, but how in reality they can contribute to this very important and acute issue, taking this concrete example, concrete case, Kashtepa Canal, is another. Or take, for instance, I mentioned above transport connectivity between Central Asia and Gulf states. In between there is Iran. If Iran is not in this group, how they will realize in practice these ambitious transport connectivity projects? They mentioned in the declaration, in this joint statement, all existing projects as if they fully support them. For instance, China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan railroad project, or middle corridor Trans-Caspian project, or Trans-Afghan railway and pipeline corridor. They expressed so positive notes about these projects. It's okay, but at the same time, good intention regarding all possible transport connectivity is one thing. Practicality is another thing. How will they realize this connectivity? Because the word connectivity is a key word here, and in this text it is used several times. So this is another issue. Interesting articles were included in the joint statement, such as cooperation in the energy sphere. All right, energy sphere. And then they mentioned Turkmenistan initiative about energy. In this sense, one idea comes to me. Well, when we participate in different C5+1 formats, every time we also mention the actuality of transport connectivities, energy cooperation, and these kind of things. But for me, as an expert who studies for many years Central Asian integration, Central Asian regional affairs, the same issues to be applied in Central Asian context are more important. Okay, energy. If Turkmenistan advances, for example, some ideas, some initiatives in the GCC Central Asia format, why not to actualize the same initiative within just Central Asian format, within just 5 countries format in Central Asia? I think, in my opinion, it's my personal opinion, it is a bigger priority to raise the same issues, the same questions, and resolve them within Central Asia. Connectivity within Central Asia, energy within Central Asia, water within Central Asia, and demonstrate to the world, to neighbors, that within Central Asian region we already have interesting solutions of these issues. We can share the best practice with others. Probably by such kind of prioritization of Central Asia, we can deal with other C5+ formats, including GCC also.
Okay, thank you so much for dedicating your time for this interview.
Thank you.
So here our analysis comes to an end. Thank you for watching this program and see you in the next episodes.